Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's tutorial, we are going to learn how you can create a speedline effect, or you can also call it as a dashing effect in Unreal Engine 5. So I created that for my Wukong remake character. So when I press the shift key to run or sprint, you will find these speedline or the dashing effects at the edges of my screen. So this is a post-processed material which we will be creating in today's tutorial. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, let's go to the content drawer. Here I'll just create a new folder and I'm gonna go ahead and create a material, speedlines post-process material. Alright, let me open this over here. Okay, so as I said, this material will be a post-processed material. That means this material will be applied on your scene texture. So what we will do is in the material details, in the material domain, we're gonna set this to a post-processed material, and you will find you can also only have this emissive color over here. So we're gonna work with the scene texture. So right click in the empty area and search for scene texture, and scene texture ID, set it as post process input 0. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use lerp. So what lerp does is linear interpolate from A to B with some alpha value. So let me just connect this right over here. So currently it is 0.5, means it is in between of A and B. Let us add a constant vector 4, and I'm gonna choose white color and I put it in B. So what lerp does, if it is 0, then it will be the scene texture itself. If it is 1, then it will be this color. If it is 0.5, then that means it is in between of both of them. Alright, so what do we actually need? Let us go ahead and try to understand what we are going to create. So when we perform this event of running, you will find at the exact center where my character is located, you will not find more speedline effects, but at the edges you will find there are more effects which are running, right? So what we have to do is we have to create a mask over here, so that we will mask out the center and will only display at the edges, same like how we did in creating a vignette. Alright, so for that, what we are going to do is we're going to take our texture coordinate first. Let's open this up. I'm going to take texture coordinate, and from here I'm going to get the distance from the center. So take distance, just type distance, and you'll find here in the utility. Alright, and now right click and create a vector 2, constant vector 2. I'm just going to click on this key to visualize. So if it is at 0, 0, you will find that there is a black spot at the left top. If I do 0 and 1, it will be there over here. If it is 1, 1, it will be at the right corner. So to get the center, we're going to do 0.5 and 0.5. So now that we have the center, now we actually want to expand the center, this spot right over here. So for that, what we'll be doing is we're going to add it. So I'm gonna create a constant or a parameter actually. Hold on to one key and click on this empty space. Alright, so and we're going to add from suppose I'm going to add 0.5 and this as well 0.5. I'm going to interpolate from 0.5 to 0.5 plus 0.5. All right, let me expand this so that we can visualize, and I'll connect this over here. So now let me hit save. Okay, so suppose I put 0.2 over here, you will find the dark spot over here. Let me quickly check again. Let us put 0.25 here. This will control the overall color right over here. So instead of linear interpolate, we are going to use inverse linear interpolate over here. So what happens if I do minus 0.2 and 0.5 over here? You will find what we actually need. So instead of this, what we are going to use is inverse interpolate, so that we do not put a negative value over here. Just gonna hit delete, and 0.25, or let's just put 0.5 over here, and inverse linear interpolate, this one right here, from this value to this value. So if value is 1, we get this. If value is 0, we are getting this. All right, so just like that, what we actually need. So I'm just going to, so from here we're going to control the exact value of this radius of this circle. So I'm going to go ahead and do 0. So if I put 0.1, it's just going to be a bit bigger than this. I'm going to hit 0.2, will be more bigger. 0.5, it will be somewhat like this. So I'm going to go ahead and do 0.25 or something. Seems fine. So this one is actually the if I put this to 1, you'll find it is like controlling the brightness of this, or the actual value of this. Actually this, so we actually want this to be in between of 0 and 1 only, because if I suppose do 10, you'll find it just gets dimmer. So for that, we're going to use something called as saturate. So what this will do, it will clamp the values. As you can see, if I hover, you will find the definition of this. Clamps the value between 0 and 1. So that is what we are going to use over here. Let me just bring it and get some space. All right. And from here, now that we have the mask over here, also one thing I wanted to mention, if you want to learn about what are these mathematic expressions in materials, you can go ahead over here, math material expressions. I'll put this link in the description. You can learn more about this. Over here we have most of the mathematical expressions which are used in materials. So for example, what we just now use, we can find over here saturate. So it gives with a good example as well. The saturate node clamps the value between 0 and 1. Values less than zeros are raised to zeros. Values greater than 1 are lowered to 1. So it just clamps in between 0 and 1, which is what we actually needed over here. All right, so now what we are going to use to control this alpha, we're going to use something called as smooth step. Smooth step right over here. So again, there is no definition of this over here. Hence, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to search for the definition over here, smooth step. So just click on this, which is right over here. So it lets you interpolate between 0 and 1. So it is similar to interpolate, but if you find the difference between interpolate and this smooth step, so let me go ahead over here. So lerp, it has A, B and an alpha to control the values between A and B. Here we have min, max, and we have a value to control. So what this min and max value does, so it lets you interpolate between 0 and 1 values, which is a min and max threshold. It has 3 arguments, which is minimum, the lower edge of interpolation, if it will return 0 for values which are less than or equal to minimum, and it will return 1 if it is greater than or equal to the max, and then the value will actually do the interpolation. So for example, they took a gradient or a grayscale texture map using linear gradient over here. Alright, so we're going to use this. So let's see what happens if we try to connect this over here in the minimum value, and currently the value is at 0. So what happens if I put it to 1? So we have the whole red, that means we are passing. Let us put like 0.5. Okay, it's in between, but you will find at the edges we have the darker value, and in the middle we have the brighter value, which is actually the opposite of this, right? So what happens if I do like 0.25? So you will find, oh, it is actually really the opposite of this. If I put 0.2, 0.1, so we do not actually need this. So what we have to do is we have to negate this over here, means inverse it. So how can we do this is we are going to use something called as 1 minus x, okay, which is just the opposite, to do something opposite of this. Right, so now let us put over here to the minimum. Now the value is 0. Let's set the value to 1. If I now set the value to 0.8, now we have something that we actually need, right? So 0.8 is right over here. 0.7 if we do, then 0.6, and just like that. Okay, so now it is totally gone. So the value we will be controlling with something else, but for now what we need, we have to set the max as well. Okay, so what we are going to do, so what if we directly use this? So we do not actually need this, we need exactly from this, because we are working with the inverse right now. Okay, so from here we're going to add a value. Okay, so let me put that to the max. I'm going to add value 0.5, which will actually find the distance. So this I'll put it to 1 for now. Okay, so now you'll find we have this glowing effect, a halo effect at the edges of the screen, right? So that effect we can control with this. So if I put this to 0, now everything is white, which is this tint over here. We can of course change the color of the tint from here. Okay, if I set this to 0.2, we have this halo effect now over here, but it is really closer to the center of the screen. So now we can control it and expand this. So I'll put this to 0.5, which looks nice and clean. So this was the first step. Now what we'll be doing is over here at the edges, we are going to add a noise, and from that noise we are going to create the speedline effect. So right click on the empty space and search for noise, and go ahead and expand this so that you can visualize how this looks like. Connect this to the value over here. Now you'll find that our mask is not there, so you have to do certain changes inside the noise. Over here the function, go ahead and select value computational, and over here the output min, which is set to -1. So let me hit save, and just to update this, roll back and click on it again. So you'll find we have some empty space over here. Again, you go ahead in the output minimum, set this to 0, and again save it, and you can visualize this. Now we have a space over here which represents this mask. All right, so now in this world position, we have to convert this noise to lines. Okay, so for that we have a function called as vector to radial value. So right click in the empty space and search for vector to radial value. What this does, the input coordinates or the vector will be transformed into the radial coordinates. Okay, and in this case, in the case of a vector, the angle will be the output in the one channel and the length of the vector in the other channel. But we are not interested in the angle or the linear distance. We are only interested in the radial coordinates. So what happens if we directly connect this to the world position? You will find we have this errors right over here. If you just read it carefully, you will find that this candidate function is not viable. So we have the error over here. So this function is not viable. Why? Because we are trying to connect radial coordinates which have x and y vector 2 which and the world position, it needs vector 3 over here. So to convert this 2 to 3, we're going to convert. So for that, we will be not doing addition, we're going to do append. So what append will do, it will concatenate, or it will actually attach a z value to x and y. So just going to append vector, and this should not be empty. So right click, or you can just create a vector value, a constant, and set this to 0 or anything, which will not matter actually. You're going to click save. You will find something like this on your screen. And so from here, what we need to do is we can actually control the coordinates over here. So from here, just hit multiply. So click on the multiply symbol. You can get this function, and we're going to multiply a constant vector 2, which is x and y. So we can control the actual width of the line and the length of the line. So which will go somewhat like, if I put this to 1, if I put this to 1 again, and suppose let us increase this to 5, we'll find this radial thing happening, which is what it is doing as it said. If I set this to 5 as well, again we have somewhat like this. So we have something by default set as true, which is swizzle coordinate output. So it is saying that this output will actually swizzle the coordinates, and we want to set that to false. So to actually control this, which is a custom expression, to actually control this, either we can go to the material function inside of this, and here we can set, over here it is set to true by default. We can set this to false over here, and you will find it that it is working over here. Instead of that, what you can do is right click over here and click on static bool, which is the way to do, and by default set it to false over here. So as I said, inside over here it was set to true by default, which is not what we needed, right? So let's head back over here, and now you can play with the values over here. So over here actually need to increase the values. So this, I'm gonna set this to 20. So we have somewhat like this. Let's set this to 2. I'm gonna set this to like 60. So we are close to it, somewhat like this. All right. So to actually animate this, we have to use a rotator. For animating, you can use spanner as well, but for this, we're going to use rotator and rotate around this coordinates, right? And we have to set the time over here. So by default, it has a default time. So right click and search for time, and to actually control the speed, we're going to multiply it with a parameter. We call it as speed. Set this to 1, or I'm gonna set this to 0.5 actually, and connect it over here into the time. Now it will be much slower going forward. So this is actually a little bit closer to what we actually need. Okay, so save this, and we have this. Okay, let's go over here. So over here this is also updated, and now from here you can set the tint of it. So you can set any tint you would like at the edges. You can do the shading over here. Alright, you can save it. Let me just quickly check the values over here. This you can set to 0.25. This is 0.5. Alright, this is fine as well. Saturate this, and then we can set to like 0.5. You can see there are more around the edges. If I set this to 0.2, if I set this to 1, now we have a little bit less. So yeah, you can just now then control these values and find the perfect one. So here I can put like 1. You will find that now it is more aggressive maybe. Also, one thing that you can control is before this, what you can do is you can multiply some value. Let me go over here. So if it is 0, you can see it is thin, or the density is less. If I set this to 1, which was by default, if I increase this, so maybe if I increase this to like 2, you see now it is more dense at the edges. So that is one thing that you can control from here. Also, you can play with the noise function over here. This was by default. If you do not like this texture, maybe gradient based, this also looks really nice. And yeah, you can just then play with the values, and you can set the levels. Make sure you set the minimum value to 0, and max you can set it to 8 or 1. It's according to you. I mean 0.8 or 1, yeah, depends upon the scenario. Over here, which gave us somewhat like this. I like to keep it as Voronoi, which gives a more like aggressive look over here. But yeah, still it's just upon how you would like as well. So yeah, then after you have done setting this, what you can do is save it again, and inside your post process camera, so let me grab my Wukong blueprint. This one right here. I am setting this when I press the left shift, and if it is sprinting, and I'm creating the dynamic material instance over here, I'm going to set Speedlines, this one, which is what we created right now, and then I'm adding it to the post process material. You do not need to do it this way. You can just go ahead in the camera, and over here you're going to search for post process material, or just search materials, just right here, and go ahead and add asset reference, and here you can just add your post process material. So for us, this is what we created. So this will by default add this to your Wukong, so, or your character itself. I'm actually controlling it within the blueprint. This is how it is looking. You can of course change the density, and now its opacity is actually a lot. So yeah, that is how you can add it. You do not need to create a dynamic material over here. You just need to add it over here. You can control the weight over here for it to make it visible or not. Alright, so yeah, that is how you can create this effect of speedline effect within Unreal Engine 5 using the post process material. So thank you so much for watching this tutorial. Let me know what other tutorials would you like me to create. So I suppose this would be the last tutorial on this Wukong series. If you would like anything else to learn from this Wukong, I will think about creating a tutorial on that. If not, I'm planning to clean this project and setting up a Patreon and give away this project over there. And yeah, again, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. More things are coming, as I said, in Unreal Engine 5.5. There are a lot of features to cover, so we'll be creating a tutorial on that pretty soon, so stay tuned for more.